Today marks 2 years on the carnivore diet, and I want to share my experiences and results with you. I started this journey on January 1st, 2023, and I'm excited to share with you how this has completely transformed my life.
And with that said, let's do the disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1. Allowance is made for the fair use of purpose, such as criticism, co-news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. This channel does not promote or encourage any illegal activities. All contents provided by this channel are meant for educational and entertainment purposes to help other women and men. There is an attack on true, helpful information from genuine sources. Please help me combat this attack by sharing this video with as many of your friends as possible. I apologize that every video needs to include this disclaimer as my videos are marked for adults. Unfortunately, this is our current landscape, and I appreciate your understanding and support.
Let's begin why I started this journey in the first place. I was searching for a way to feel better, both physically and mentally. Before the carnivore diet, I struggled with obesity, sleep apnea, low energy, inflammation. My boys were becoming teenagers, and I wanted to have the physical and mental energy to keep up with them. And of course, you guys know my beautiful wife. I didn't want to be that overweight husband in all of our pictures. I decided to try the carnivore diet because I needed something very simple and something that would help cleanse me of all the bad foods that I was eating. To quickly summarize, I began this journey on January 1st, 2023. And for the first 90 days, I only ate 4 main foods: steak, hamburger, bacon, and eggs. And with every meal, I did include butter and salt. That's it, those 4 foods. I did a variation of mixing and matching them all the time. Sometimes bacon and eggs for breakfast, sometimes steak and eggs. I would always have a variety, but I always stuck to those 4 foods. In that first 90 days, I lost 50 pounds. I reduced my body fat percentage from 29.7 to 18.6, and I gained 4.6 pounds of muscle. After this initial 90 days, I continued this lifestyle, and I've maintained my weight and body fat percentage over the last 2 years. And this is where it gets interesting. Even though my body composition stats have remained the same over these last 2 years, I have noticed a lot of changes in my body and mentally. As time went on, I would see things like loose skin tightening. My complexion and my skin seemed to improve month after month. Small cuts or injuries would heal much more quickly. And my recovery from workouts was very quick. I was able to start working out harder and harder and getting less and less sore. I also saw my blood work improve over the last 2 years. One example is my LDL cholesterol. A good LDL is anything under 100, but on January 1st, 2023, when I began this diet, it was at 193. But then after 90 days, it reduced down to 110. Still high, but much, much better than it was. Well, I did my blood work last week, and this is now 2 years since I began the diet, and my LDL registered at 70. So I'm now well below the 100 threshold, and everything seems good. Almost all my stats on my blood work are baseline, and I've seen improvement in most areas continually over the last 2 years. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen over the next year. I've had so many improvements physically, mentally, spiritually, socially since I began this diet. I wish that I had journaled it and made a lot better notes throughout the process. But I did put together some highlights of some of the big things I noticed that have improved my life. Week 1, the thing I noticed the most was a decrease in inflammation. When I get lots of inflammation in my body, I feel it in my joints. My fingers especially feel fat and tight. After about 3 or 4 days starting the carnivore diet, my fingers loosened up. They were thinner. My ring was looser on my finger. I felt joints all around my body feel more loose and more elastic. Week 2, I had higher energy, and that energy was leveled out and sustained all day. I didn't have highs and lows. My blood sugar was now in line. I also started to sleep better. I'll talk more about that later. And also in the second week, I did develop diarrhea. And this is something that's commonly talked about when most people begin their carnivore journeys or their carnivore diets. I experienced the same thing, and it lasted 3 or 4 days. But really, this is not a negative thing. This was kind of a cleanse. I felt like my body was truly cleansing of a lot of built up stuff in my system. Week 3 brought some more noticeable changes. One of the most noticeable was I no longer had gas. And that's continued throughout the last 2 years. I never have gas. I've never felt bloated. And even though I eat so much meat, it wasn't something I expected, but it's true. No gas. But really the big one is I got off of blood pressure medication. 3 weeks into this diet, I no longer needed to take my blood pressure medication. I monitor my blood pressure every day. I experimented getting off of it a couple of times the week before, but this week it has sustained itself low and has been consistent. Also that 3rd week, I really started to notice control over my cravings. If somebody at our office brought donuts, I still wanted one. It still looked good. But I didn't have to have one like I did in the past. I also started to notice an uptick in my personal motivation. Little things like I was staying up a little bit later at night and I was doing things. I wasn't just sitting around. I wasn't feeling tired or lethargic, I felt like doing things. And so I would find myself cleaning out a drawer in the kitchen or organizing something that had been bothering me. But that extra motivation was something that was really noticeable about week 3 and continued after that. During the 4th week, my appetite dropped. I really was never very hungry. And when I was eating, I didn't finish my plate. I didn't finish the steak. I didn't finish a burger. I began skipping breakfast only because I wasn't hungry. I actually began intermittent fasting, not by choice necessarily, but I just didn't feel like eating. So I would not eat until around 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I would have lunch, and then again, I would have dinner at night. I also began to notice an improvement in my skin. I felt like the rosacea on my cheeks started to fade. I noticed that my skin was more hydrated and felt more smooth. Week 8, I started noticing that my muscles were recovering really fast from my workouts at the gym. I found that I would work out harder and harder and longer, and I wasn't getting sore. This really helped, as one of my goals was to try to increase my muscle mass. Week 10, I was self-aware and started noticing that I was thinking faster and speaking faster. I even had comments from my wife and others that I worked with that said I was talking a lot faster. It seemed like I was processing more quickly. I could recall more quickly ideas or thoughts that I had. That fog that I had was starting to lift and only got better after this point. For the next year and a half, all of these things I mentioned continued to improve. And I started seeing better and better results with my skin, with my energy levels. I had more control over food. My self-esteem improved. And really the big thing, in the last 2 years, since I started this diet, I have not been sick once. I have not had a common cold, a flu. I haven't had a cough. I've had no type of sickness or illness in these last 2 years. I have 4 boys at school, and they come home and bring all kinds of stuff with them. But I haven't caught it. I think my immune system has gotten so strong because I'm so much healthier now that I'm able to fight off all those common colds and common flus and diseases that come in. The next significant change I noticed was actually 21 months after I started, almost the full 2 years. I spoke about this earlier, but one of the ailments that I've had for a very long time is sleep apnea. I was really hoping that doing this diet would help cure that. Maybe it was a weight thing and I needed to lose weight. Even after losing the weight and maintaining that weight loss, I still needed to wear a CPAP and I still needed to take Ambien. I did cut my Ambien in half at one point, but I was still taking it. And I've tried to wean off, but I haven't been able to. Well, at week 21, I was able to stop using my CPAP. I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't snoring at night. I was sleeping peacefully. I wasn't bothering my wife or my kids. If I fell asleep on the couch, I never snored again. This was a life changer. Not having to wear that CPAP, not having to travel with it or think about it. It's great. Then on month 22, I was able to completely cut out Ambien and not need it anymore. So it's taken 22 months for my body to heal to the point where I don't have any prescriptions. I don't have a need for any sleep apnea apparatuses. Okay, now let's talk about challenges I experienced these last 2 years and how I've adapted. Even after 2 years, it's hard to break the bad habits I created after eating badly for so long. I made so many bad choices in my life, and those do compound, and those don't go away immediately. Social situations can be tricky, and I've had to learn how to adapt to various situations. For example, we do eat out a lot as a family, and I have learned that almost every case I can get a carnivore type meal at pretty much any restaurant I go to, with very few exceptions. So going out to dinner for us has not been a problem for me on this diet.
You know you're excited.
I am. I'm diving in. So.
All right.
The other scenario that comes up occasionally is our family might get invited over to someone else's home for dinner. Now, I don't want to be that guy who shows up at someone's house invited and then very restrictive on what I can eat. So I don't. If I get invited to someone's home, I'm going to eat the meal that they prepare. I'm going to try to focus more on the protein side of things, and I'll have smaller portions of the other stuff. I'm not going to make a scene, and I'm not going to be disrespectful. I've also learned that having one meal that's not perfectly in line with carnivore is not going to hurt you in any way. Matter of fact, my metabolism has gotten so fast and so strong that I absorb it immediately. I don't even notice it. People always ask me if I'm going to continue this diet and what are my goals going forward. The answer is I'm 100% going to continue this lifestyle. I don't even want to call it a diet anymore. This is just my life. This is just how I eat. It's a lifestyle. As for my goals going forward, I'm no longer trying to lose weight. My goal is to become healthier, to have my muscles become stronger, my muscles become healthier, my organs continue to become healthier. My blood work, which is really great right now, I want it to be perfect, so I want that to continue to improve. I want my mental clarity to continue to improve and sharpen, and I want my spirituality and my social skills to also increase. And I believe that this diet does those things for me, because I've seen an increase in all of those facets this entire time, and I have no reason to doubt that that will continue. I get a lot of questions from people about the long-term stability of this type of diet. Will it hurt me long-term? Am I sacrificing long-term health for short-term gains? Well, I'll tell you my philosophy on that. First, I'm 50 years old, and so I grew up in a time frame where we were taught the food pyramid. We were taught to eat lots of veggies and grains. We were taught that red meat is bad for you. So even for me, it's a whole different mind shift to try a diet like this. When I began this diet back in 2023, I decided to do my blood work every 6 weeks, and I have since then, because I want to make sure that this is actually helping my body and not giving me some sort of negative or false sense of hope. So I've come up with 3 things that I look at to measure myself against to make sure that this diet is still good for me. The first is how I feel. Well, I feel so much better physically, mentally, and emotionally. Better than I have in my entire life. And I can't say that more clearly. I have never felt this physically, mentally, emotionally good ever. Not in high school, not in college, ever. Second, I look better. And for the first time in my life, again, 50 years old, for the first time in my life, I feel comfortable taking my shirt off. I started this diet on January 1st, 2023. And after 90 days, I felt so good about myself and how I looked, I was comfortable taking my shirt off. And that is not something that's common for me, ever. And the third thing that I use as a measurement is blood work. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a nutritionist. So I don't know. I don't know that I really know how the makeup of different foods affect the body. So I can only go based on what I see, what I feel, and what I learn from my blood work. Okay, for any of you who are starting out on this carnivore journey right now, I have some tips for you that might help the process along, especially in the very beginning. Number 1, keep it simple. It's 4 foods: steak, hamburger, bacon, eggs. Use butter, real butter, a lot of butter, and salt. A couple of side things with that. If you want to add other spices as well, that's fine. Some people doing the carnivore diet will say to not use spices, only salt. And there may be some benefit for doing it that way. If that helps you to sustain your diet in the beginning, go right ahead. I use salt, pepper, smoked paprika, sometimes a little bit of garlic salt. Also, another trick that I don't know if anybody else will share, but I will. It is, of course, best if you drink water only. However, during my first 90 days, I did have a Diet Coke every day. For me, looking forward to that sweet, cold Diet Coke was motivating. It helped me to get through the cravings. It helped me to get through times where I really wanted something bad. And Diet Coke probably isn't the greatest thing in the world, but there isn't sugar in it. And it didn't seem to affect my weight loss. I lost 50 pounds those 90 days. I don't drink as much Diet Coke now as I did back then. I still have one occasionally, and I don't feel bad about it. But those first 90 days, that was a crutch that helped me to sustain this so that I wasn't so restrictive. If you become too restrictive, it may be hard to sustain. And my last big trick, bacon bags. Think about that for a minute. In the first 30 days especially, I made so much bacon. Bacon would quickly help to change the taste in my mouth. It would help to curb cravings. Actually, bacon and Diet Coke. That was my go-to if I really had bad cravings and thought I was going to cheat. But I would take bacon bags with me when I drove in the car, take it to work. When my family would go to the movie theater, I would take a bag of bacon, sneak that in, and get a Diet Coke while I was there. My family would have popcorn, and it was easy for me to not cheat a little bit and have a little popcorn because I had my bacon bags. So those helped me get along nicely for those first 30 days. Frankly, they still do. I don't have as much bacon as I did back in the beginning, but I still have bacon often enough, and it does help me when I've got a bad craving. And last but not least, be patient. This is definitely a journey, not a sprint. I didn't become overweight and unhealthy all in one day. It was a slow process. And so getting back in shape is a slow process as well. But when you make that curve and start progressing in a healthy upward motion, you'll get more and more motivated. So that new motivation, that new energy that you have will compound on each other, and you will have success. Looking back on these last 2 years, I can honestly say that this diet helped me to transform my entire life. It's not just about the physical change, it's about how great I feel every day. If you've been following my journey here on Spa and Tell, Thank you for your support. You can always check out my other carnivore videos that I have listed below. Also, our health and wellness app that's listed below has a tremendous amount of information on carnivore diet that I've done and that other peers of mine have shared. Leave me a comment below or ask a question. I love to respond. I love to talk about your journeys. And if you've had a good experience with the carnivore diet, I want to hear about it. If you've had a bad experience, I want to hear about that as well. If you have any great tips or tricks that you can share with all of us about how you sustain your healthy living, please share in the comments below.
Did you pack the flashlight, the blanket, and the mat? It's a real adventure, the trail you're looking at. I'm glad you came. For a while I thought you might be bailing. Is that the same yellow shirt you used to wear? But 1,000 years seem like almost no time now.